to welcome to any community. What do you mean by Rupa? What is its significance? How this particular knowledge of Rupa will be helpful in the diagnosis, or that will be helpful in the differential diagnosis, that will be helpful in predicting the prognosis of the disease. In other words, how this is helpful in making the, the Vyadhi Vinischaya, how this is helpful in making the Sapeksha and Vyavacchedaka Nidana, how that will be helpful in predicting the Sadhyasadhyata of any particular disease. That will be the discussion topic of this particular video. Dear ANA community, put a thumbs up and spread this particular video to maximum number of true Nidana learners, and put the bell icon so that the YouTube algorithms will fetch you the right information at the right time for the right purpose. When you think about the significance of Rupa, this will be explained in Madhukosha commentary, Madhava Nidana, first chapter, 4th shloka. It is mentioned, Asati Rupa Abhidhani Vyadhe Rasheshena Swarupameva Vyavacchedyate Kimcha Sadhyasadhyatvam Janajnayate Tatha hi Sukha Sadhya Lakshane Charakaha Hetavaha Prurupani Rupani Alpani Yasya Vai Nachatulya Gunu Dushu Nadoshaha Prakritir Bhavet Iti Kashtasadhya Lakshane Charakaha Nimitta Purupanam Rupanam Madhyame Bale Sarva Sampurna Lakshana Sannipada Jvaro Asadhyaha. This is in the significance of the Rupa that is being explained. It is of three different ways we can able to identify the significance as such. First one, that is in making the right Vyadhi Vinischaya, so that is the accurate diagnosis of the disease. Second, in Sapeksha Nidana and Vyavacchedaka Nidana, in making the differential diagnosis. Third thing, Sadhyasadhyata of any particular disease, or what we can say the prognosis of the disease. These are the three main significance of Rupa as such. Now we are going to discuss these three different significance in a little bit elaborate form. Before knowing about this particular Rupa as such, you need to know about the probable timeline of Nidana and their events as such. How that will be helpful in making the clinical diagnosis as such, that we need to know. When you think about the timeline of 5 days, here it's an imaginary case scenario that the first day the person has the Shita Vata Sevana, so that is cold air exposure. In that particular sense, the probability this particular Shita air, so that will be entering into the nose, or that may enter into the mouth, or that may enter into the eyes or ears, and then that may straight away in the having an exposure to the skin as such. Because of all these different ways, the person will be having the typical clinical presentation. If that is exposed, the mouth is being exposed, the person will be having less amount of the secretions of the oral cavity. If the cold air that is entering into the nose, there will be the possibility of reduced nasal secretions as such. And if that particular cold air that is having an exposure to the eyes, the person will be having the dryness of the eyes as such. Then ears, there will be the wax accumulation, that will be dry wax accumulation that may be possible in the ears. When that is exposed into the skin, as the person will be having the peripheral vasoconstriction. In that way, they are having the typical clinical presentation. So in this particular situation, in this particular example, on the second day, the person is having the Kasa and Alpashtivana. So that means the person will be having the Shita Vata exposure directly to the respiratory passage. Of course, there may be a possibility of cold air entry that may be possible into the mouth also to a lesser extent. But when you think about the other aspects such as eyes, ears or skin, there may be a possibility of the less possibility because of the nature of the clinical presentation. Third day, the person has taken the Sevana. So, plus the person is having Shita Vata Sevana itself. So this may be responsible for the, again, Tvak Sankocha. Here the person is presented as Tvak Sankocha in the sense this particular cold exposure, cold air exposure that is happening even into the skin also. Plus, on the fourth day, the person is having the Kasa, Bahunishtiva, etc. So again, this is considered to be further exposure that is happening to the respiratory passages and such. And fifth day, the person is having the Jwara that has developed at the morning. At this particular time period, the person is visiting the physician. This is the stage of a Rupavastha as such. When you think about the first significance, that is Vyadhi Vinischaya, suppose if the person is going to consume, so this particular gobi Manchurian, so we know that, so it will be having the Katu, Amla and Lavana Rasa substances as such. In that particular sense, when you look into the Pancha Mahabhuta constituency, Katu Rasa substances, they are having the Vayu and Agni Mahabhuta dominance. Amla Rasa substances, they are having the Prithvi and Agni Mahabhuta dominance. Lavana Rasa substances, they are having Up and Agni Mahabhuta dominances. When you look into all these Mahabhuta dominance together, the person will be having the Agni Mahabhuta to a large extent. Less, that is Prithvi and Up Mahabhuta, which is indicative of Kapha Mahabhuta or Kapha Dosha dominance as such, plus Vayu as such, that is indicative of Vata Dosha dominance as such. Based on the Pancha Mahabhuta dominance, the person will be having the Pitta Dosha to the maximum extent vitiation may be there. The second dosha that is going to get vitiated in this particular location will be Kapha. And third, that is the least dosha vitiation may be possible, will be of Vata dosha. When you think about the guna presence in the body, so that is basically Lakhu, Snigdha, Ushna and Tikshna guna increase that we are going to expect in the body itself. All these are indicative of the Pitta dosha vitiation. Suppose if the person is continuously consuming this gobi Manchurian for a period of 3 or 4 days or more, in that particular situation, these are the possible pathological processes that may happen in the human body. As they are having the inflammatory substances such as the green chili or red chili, etc., or the person is having the spicy substances, sour substances, etc., so that will be leading to the inflammation to happen in the stomach. If these substances are taken at the initially, there may be a possibility of entry of these spicy substances may happen even into the small intestine also. In that way, there will be the possibility of inflammation that is going to take place. Because of the inflammation, so that will be responsible for the production of inflammatory markers in the stomach or small intestine or large intestine. When there is inflammatory markers are being produced, they are responsible for the influx of the fluid from the capillaries of the stomach or the capillaries of the small intestine or the capillaries of the large intestine into the alimentary canal. How this is responsible for the influx as such? Because these are influenced by the inflammatory markers in the gastrointestinal lumen. These inflammatory markers are nothing but the proteins. Because of that, they are responsible for the influx of this fluid from the intravascular compartment to the alimentary canal. This is actually responsible for the reduced digestion to take place from the alimentary canal to the body. So that means the macromolecules are not going to get converted into micromolecules. Thereby, these micromolecules are not entering into the intravascular compartment for the utilization. Because of that, the nutrients which are already stored in the body, they are going to get converted into the nutrients. Initially, it will be from the carbohydrate side. In a matter of 30 minutes later, that will be responsible for the fat metabolism. So that is the stored fat, the subcutaneous tissues of the buttock, breasts, abdomen, cheeks, etc. They are going to get converted into circulating fat. Thereby, the nutrient utilization starts to occur because of this. Because of this, we can say there will be the increased catabolism that is going to take place. Because of that, the person will be having the Vata dosha vitiation. In this way, the person will be having the clinical manifestation as such. Because of this particular Nidana Sevana, the person may be having the Pitta dosha vitiation. Initially, this particular Pitta dosha vitiation will be taking place in the Mahasrotas. Later, that may enter into the Rasadhatu level. In this way, we are going to make the diagnosis as such. Suppose if the person is going to consume the substances gobi Manchurian for continuously 4 or 5 days as such, this in turn is further responsible for the increase of Pitta dosha, plus there may be a possibility of Rakta Dhatu affliction as such. This way, this may be helpful in making the clinical diagnosis as such. Next, about the significance of this is in terms of Sapeksha Nidana Vyavacchedaka Nidana. The same example let us take. So, before going into this, making the Sapeksha and Vyavacchedaka Nidana, we need to know certain information. The recipe of the dish as such. How this particular recipe is being prepared. It is being prepared by making the batter, which is containing the flour, which is containing the other, for example, the gobi and other flour as such, plus which will be fried in the oil. So what we can say, which will be fried in the oil, then it will be again mixed with the other. So we say that the vegetables as such, again this will be fried in the oil in the pan itself. In this way, the gobi manchurian will be prepared, and the plus that will be added with the red chili powder, that will be added with the salt, etc., etc. So that means all these are indicative of the pitta dosha vitiation. Second thing that we need to know, how much quantity that is being taken. Is it up to 5% of the total body capacity, stomach capacity, or is it to 15% or 20% or 30% or 50% of the stomach capacity? So whether this is being taken at the beginning of the consumption of food, or at the end of the consumption of the food, or at the middle of the consumption of the food, etc. And proportion of the ingredients, how much amount of the gobi is being added, is it added with the cabbage, etc. So that we have to inquire about it. Plus, timing of the consumption of the food intake. So that's what we have said. Is it in the morning time that is being consumed? Is it in the noon time, or is it in the night time, or is it in the midnight time that is consumed, etc.? That is going to decide the Vyadhi Vinischaya as such. When you think about this, the overall interpretation, as the person is going to consume this, that will be having the Katu, Amla and Lavana Rasa, that will be having the Snigdha, Ushna, Tishna, Laghuguna as such, plus wherein there may be a possibility of the maximum vitiation of the Pitta dosha, then lesser extent Kapha dosha vitiation, then still much lesser extent Vata dosha vitiation may be possible. And if the person is going to consume continuously, there may be a possibility of Rakta affliction or Sweda affliction. There may be a possibility of Medas, Mamsa, or Majja, etc. affliction that may be taking place. And when you think about the Srotas as such, as the person is going to consume the gobi Manchurian, the initial system afflicted will be Mahasrotas. Initially, that may be having the affliction of Pranavaha Srotas, then Annavaha Srotas, then Purishavaha Srotas affliction we may suspect. And if the person is going to consume continuously, there may be a possibility of Raktavaha Srotas affliction. Svedava Srota subflexion, Medova Srota subflexion, or Majjava Srota subflexion as such. And when you think about the Roga Marga affliction, initially that may be observed, that will be considered to be Mahasrotas, that is what we can say the Abhyantara Roga Marga affliction. Then we may suspect Bakhya Roga Marga affliction, as is because Raktavaha, Medovaha or Majjavaha, so this affliction may be considered as such. In this way, we have to make the decoding of the components of the, or to say that the human body part that are going to get afflicted depending upon the Lakshana observed in the patient as such. Suppose if you are expecting Kushtavisarpa Bedaka, Raktapiktamasragdara, Gudametrasya Pakashtapliha, Gulmotha Vidradehi, etc., we may say that the person is having the Rakta affliction as such. If the person is having Swedanam, Aswedanam, Aktishlakshmata Mandasya Paridaham, Lomaharsham Chadrishtva, we may suspect Svedavaha Sruta affliction. Prapparvanam Brahmamurcha Darshanam Tamasasta Arusham Stula Mulanam Parvajanam Cha Darshanam. We may suspect the Majjavaha Srota affliction. So like that. So in this way, so this simple decoding of this particular Nidana, that may helpful in making the Sapeksha and Vyavacchedaka Nidana. Third aspect, that is regarding the Sadhyasadhyata of the Vyadhi as such. Here there are the two conditions wherein the initially on the left side it is the localized disease, wherein the skin affliction that is observed in one small part of the body, whereas in the second image we may suspect to say observe the wide spread of the skin that is going to get afflicted. In the first instance, there may be a possibility of Vata dosha affliction. In the second instance, there may be a possibility of a Pitta dosha affliction as such. And when you think about the distribution of the lesion, the extreme left image, we are knowing only small part of the skin that is afflicted as such. So that means that may require the minimum line of treatment as such. Whereas on the second image, we are going to see the widespread skin lesion. So that means widespread, that means extensive line of treatment may be necessary in the second image as such. In this way, so Sadhyasadhyata, that is prognosis of the disease, can be predicted as such. To sum up, whenever if you think about the Rupa as such, most of the patients are visiting the hospitals when they are actually observing the Lakshana as such. That is, any clinical symptoms, based on that only they are going to visit the physicians. For that, we have to identify the timeline from the exposure of the Nidana till the complete Lakshana manifestation. So then only we can able to make the diagnosis properly. Hence, the significance of Rupa lies in making the right Vyadhi Vinischaya and in making the accurate step-by-step Sapeksha Nidana and Vyavacchedaka Nidana, and to predict and interpret and interact the appropriate Sadhyasadhyata of the disease to the patient and their relatives. Dear ANA community, that's all for today. What are the major key takeaways from today's discussion? Mention in the comment box below. And what is the one video that you'd like to hear in this particular channel in the coming days? Mention in the comment box below and spread this particular video to maximum number of true Nidana learners so that we can make a huge movement out of this particular small message. Dear ANA community, don't forget to make the thumbs up and click the bell icon so that YouTube algorithms will fetch you the right information for the right purpose at the right time. That's all for today. Something more in the next video. Thank you.